everybody, what's up? How's it going? So last video we talked about loops in Python. We went through the three essential type of loops. I believe those were while loops, nested loops, and for loops. In this video we're going to do some exercises. We're going to have some problems and solve them using loops, Python loops, of course. Yeah, so let's start with the first one. We're going to try to make a loop that is going to calculate the factorial. For example, we will use a for loop to calculate the factorial of a number n, doesn't matter what value it has, which is defined as the as the product of all positive integers up to and including n itself, which means that if we have 3, it's going to be 1, 2 and 3 inclusive. Yeah, the input will come from the user, so we'll be using the input function. If you don't know what the input function is, it's just a function that takes the input of the user from the command line. For example, if I have a variable here called var I just do input like this, and inside I define a string that I want to appear to take the user's input. Like for example, I can say type your name like this. Please add some space, and here when I receive the name of the user, I just print it out for them. I tell them your name is and what is their names. Let's say var variable that we used. Yeah, we take their names and we tell them your name is whatever they tapped, like if they don't know what their names is. Anyways, so here we type in this loop. So no, here it asks me for my name. Of course, you want my name. Here you go. And your name is Ahmed. Okay, thank you. Duh. Anyways, yeah, this is how we use the input. So we'll be using this input to take the number from the user, and we're going to iterate through it to calculate the factorial. Yeah, let's make a variable here. Let's name it n. Never name your variables in, because it doesn't suggest anything. You should always name your variables. You should give them suggestive names that have a meaning and make your code cleaner. But for the sake of this video, just code in, like in math. Yeah, the number of course has to be an integer, so we can do some arithmetic calculations on it. Here I'm going to call that function that we did earlier, which is going to take the input. We'll say, for example, enter a number and space. Yeah, so this line basically takes the number from the users and converts this into an integer, because it's going to be a string by default. Next line, I'm going to define a variable, let's call it factorial, and give it the initial value of 1. And here I'm going to be using the for loop. I'm going to say, like, for I in range it's going to start from 1 and end at n plus 1. The reason why I added 1 here is because if, for example, if we have 3 in this n will not be included here, because if it is 3, then it will stop in 2, because the range doesn't include the number that is here. It includes the number that is below it by 1. So for example, if it's 3 here, I have to increment it by 1 in order to have 4. This way it's going to go through 1, 2 and 3 inclusive. Yeah, there was so much stuff. Now let's add to columns here and indents. Yeah, so each time I iterate, I just add actually I have to multiply the factorial by the value that I have there, because it's going to be 1 times 1, then 1 times 2, 2 times 3. Yeah, considering that n gonna have value 3. Yeah, I guess that's it. We just multiply numbers in order to get the factorial. Nothing hard here. Easy peasy. and of course we have to print the value in order to see if the factorial got calculated. Let's say the factorial of n is, and the factorial that we calculated here. Yeah, let's try our code to see if it's working. Here it's asking me for a number. I'll give it 3, and the factorial of 3 is 6, which is 1 times 2 times 3 equals 6. Yeah, that's correct. We can give it another number, of course. 10. The factorial of 10 is this long integer. Yeah, that was the first example, calculating the factorial. In the second example, we're going to be doing the Fibonacci sequence. Yeah, it is going to be using the while loop, because that is the optimal way to do it. Yeah, we're going to generate the n numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, where each number is the sum of two preceding ones. Yeah, old school Fibonacci sequence. Like we did earlier, we're going to take the input from the user. So let me iterate back here, and I'm going to be needing the first line. Let's get rid of everything else. Yeah, I'm going to have two numbers here, A and B. Maybe we'll define them in one line. Let's say 0 and 1, because they have to be 0 and 1. And here I'm going to be using the while loop. I'm saying that when A is less than n, which is going to be entered by the user, I'm going to, well, print A and do some arithmetics here. I'm going to give B to A. B will get assigned to A, and B will have the value of A plus B. Yeah, B will go to A, and B will have the value of A plus B in each iteration, and the next time A will have this one, so B will get changed as well, and so far so forth until A is greater than or equal to n. Yeah, and of course I have to save everything, and let's try it. Let's clear the screen first, and Python 3 loves by enter a number. So we got 5. It gives me 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. I guess that's the correct way to do it. And maybe 100, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. Yeah, the Fibonacci sequence, just like that. Yeah, we initialize two variables, of course, A and B, and you know, to 0 and 1 respectively. We use the Fibonacci sequence by adding A and B there and swapping their values. We print each value of A until it's no longer less than n. Yeah, and this was the second example we had. Yeah, let's do another example, our third example. Let's let's do prime numbers. Yeah, we're going to be using the nested loops because they are the only ones left, I believe, to generate the prime numbers, you know, up to a user defined number, which is this one here. Yeah, let's get started. We're going to be using the nested loops. Let's define our main loop, which has the I as the variable. We're going to have a range from 2 to n plus 1. Let me continue, and then I'll go through the code. Let's define a variable. Let's initialize it to true at first, and then we're going to have the second defined loop. The range is going to go from 2, and of course we have to turn this into the power of 0.5. That's it. And here I deleted one. I have to check if the modulus of A times Z is 0, because that will indicate it's an even number. Because if it is then it is an even number. It's not going to be prime, because the prime one is only divided on itself, and and 1, which means this is going to be false. And yeah, I'm going to break out of the loop, and that's it. And here that I have the first one, I guess I have to come here and say that if it's already became a prime, if it is a prime, then well, it deserves to get printed. Print I. Yeah, just like that. Exactly. Yeah, we use the nested loops here to check if each number from 2 to n. We added 1 because, as I said, n is not included, so we have to add 1 in order to include the value of n, the exact one. Yeah, to n. Well, if it is prime, we first assume that each number is a prime. Here we assume that each number we have here is a prime. That's the first assumption before we do our iteration here, because by setting the boolean variable is prime to true, then we use another loop to iterate over all possible factors of the current number. If the factor is found, we set the prime to false. It's found by saying if I modulus g equals to 0, which indicate that it is an odd number, and break out of the loop, of the inner loop, because this break will just break out of this one, and then we'll come here and see if is prime is still true, because if it's becoming false, that means the number is not prime. But if it stayed exactly as it is with the value of true, that means that the number is prime, is still true. You know, after the inner loop we print the current number here, just like that. So save and check colored, and let's print. Let's say for example 1, doesn't say anything. Let's say for example 2. 2, the prime numbers are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. What am I doing? 11, 3, 3, 4, 6, 6, and 11. I think it's working. Yeah, let's go through one last example, and then let's end this video. Well, here we're going to be counting the characters of a string. The string will come from the user, so we don't have to have the int here. It's going to be a string. I don't need it to be converted into an integer. Let's change the number to maybe, for example, s for string. Enter a word. The user will enter a word, and we are going to tell him how many characters that word contain. Let's define a char here. Enter character, space it. We're going to be using a normal for loop here for say and s for each character in the string that is entered. I'm going to say if the character is equal to the character that the user wants us to count its the number of its existence in the word above. If it does exist, we're going to increment the count by 1. Just like that, and eventually we're going to print. I'm going to do some nice syntax here. Yeah, the character, or am I doing a char? For example, appears. And we're going to tell them how many times. Times in entered word, just like that. Yeah, we are asking the user to enter the input here, a string, and also another input, which is the character. We use the for loop to iterate over each character, and whenever we find the character that the user entered, we're going to increment the counts, indicating that we have met it again in the word. So save everything and let's test this. Enter a word. Let's do, for example, banana. Banana. I'm going to be counting how many in characters are there. The character in appears 2 times in the entered word, which is correct. Yeah. Well, you guys, this is it. This is the end of this video. We went through, I believe, 4 or 5 examples. I believe by now the loops should sink in your mind, and you know, with enough practice and examples, yeah, it will have no choice but to sink in your mind. Yeah, just make sure you practice all the time, and don't get lazy all the time, because when you do that you tend to forget some code, and it really sucks having to memorize it all over again. Yeah, well, that's it for now. We talked about loops. I believe in the next video we'll be explaining the functions, and after that we can start talking about OOP, or object-oriented programming, which is a pretty advanced concept in Python, but knowing how to deal with the OOP, or object-oriented programming, is going to be a game changer, because you'll be able to build a lot of things knowing that. Yeah, well, that's it. Enough with me talking. Thank you so much for watching this video, and yeah, see you next time.